My name is Eleanor, and I spend my days uncovering the handwritten secrets people leave behind, diary entries that were never meant to be read, confessions scribbled in margins, final thoughts preserved on forgotten pages. Each discovery reminds me that every family has layers of truth waiting beneath the surface. Last month, I received a call from Rebecca Chin in Portland, Oregon. 6 months after her mother's funeral, she had finally gathered the courage to clean out the old Victorian house where she'd grown up. What she found in her mother's antique writing desk would unravel 40 years of carefully guarded secrets and reveal that sometimes, the people we think we know best are living lives we never imagined. This particular diary entry was written just 3 weeks before her mother's death. Pages that contained names Rebecca had never heard, addresses she didn't recognize, and most shocking of all, references to my other children and the family I chose to protect by keeping them secret. Rebecca's discovery didn't just change everything she knew about her mother. It revealed that she had siblings she'd never met, living just 2 hours away, and that her perfect family had been built on a foundation of love so complex it required a lifetime of silence to protect it. Have you ever found something that made you question everything you believed about the people who shaped your life? Share your experience in the comments, because Rebecca's story will show you just how far a parent will go to protect the families they love. Linda Chin had lived in that Portland Victorian for 53 years, raising Rebecca as a single mother after her husband died in a workplace accident when Rebecca was only 8. The house on Hawthorne Boulevard was filled with the kind of warmth that comes from decades of careful tending, hand-sewn curtains, a kitchen that always smelled of jasmine tea, and a living room where every photograph had been precisely placed to tell the story of their small but happy family. The antique writing desk had belonged to Linda's grandmother, brought from China in the 1920s. It was an exquisite piece of dark mahogany with intricate brass hardware and hidden compartments that had fascinated Rebecca as a child. Linda used it daily, paying bills, writing letters to distant relatives, maintaining the careful organization that had kept their household running smoothly for decades. Rebecca had avoided cleaning out the desk for months after the funeral. It felt too personal, too final. But estate lawyers needed documents, and Rebecca knew her mother would have wanted everything handled properly. The main drawers contained exactly what Rebecca expected: paid bills organized by year, insurance documents in labeled folders, and a small collection of letters from relatives in Taiwan. But when Rebecca accidentally knocked over a small jade figurine that sat on the desk's writing surface, she heard something rattle inside the desktop itself. Her fingers found a nearly invisible seam in the wood. Pressing gently, a hidden panel slid open, revealing a compartment Rebecca had never known existed. Inside was a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age and filled with her mother's careful handwriting. The diary spanned nearly 4 decades, from 1985 to just weeks before Linda's death in 2024. Rebecca opened to a random page and found an entry that stopped her heart. "Today I finally met the children David had with Patricia. Sarah is so beautiful, she has our family's eyes. Michael reminds me of my father when he was young. And little Jennifer, she's only 6, but already so smart. I wanted to hold them all, to tell them they have an aunt who loves them, but I promised David I would keep our connection secret until he's ready." Rebecca read the entry 3 times before the words sank in. David. She'd heard that name throughout her childhood. David, her mother's cousin who lived somewhere in Oregon but whom they rarely saw. Except according to this diary, David wasn't a cousin at all. He was Linda's half-brother, the son their grandfather had fathered and abandoned before Linda was born. The earlier entries painted a picture Rebecca had never imagined. In 1985, Linda had been working the night shift at Emmanuel Medical Center when a car accident brought in a patient who would change her life forever. The injured man was conscious enough to give his name, David Chin, and Linda recognized the surname immediately. During his recovery, David revealed the story Linda had never known. Their father had had an affair with a woman named Patricia Williams in 1955, before he married Linda's mother. When Patricia became pregnant, Linda's father panicked. He was already engaged to another woman, already building the respectable life his own immigrant parents demanded. He gave Patricia money for an abortion and cut off all contact. But Patricia kept the baby. She moved to Seattle, raised David alone, and never told him his father's name until she was dying of cancer in 1984. She gave David a shoebox full of letters and photographs, evidence of the brief but intense relationship that had created him but destroyed his chances of knowing his father. David had spent months tracking down their father's family, only to discover that the man who had abandoned him was already dead, having passed away from a heart attack in 1978. Linda was the only family David had left in the world. "I looked at this man," Linda wrote in her diary, "this stranger who shared my father's stubborn chin and my grandmother's quick temper, and I felt something I'd never experienced before. I had a brother. I wasn't alone in the world anymore." Linda made a decision that would define the next 40 years of her life. She would help David, but secretly. She couldn't risk the judgment of their tight-knit Chinese-American community, couldn't bear the scandal that would come with acknowledging her father's abandonment of his illegitimate son. David had married Patricia Williams' niece, also named Patricia, and they had 3 children, Sarah, Michael, and Jennifer. Linda became their secret aunt, the mysterious benefactor who sent anonymous gifts at birthdays and Christmas, who paid for Sarah's piano lessons and Michael's baseball equipment, who contributed to Jennifer's college fund through untraceable money orders. The diary entries from those early years were filled with joy and guilt in equal measure. Linda attended Sarah's high school graduation from the back of the auditorium. She watched Michael's championship baseball game from the parking lot. She sent flowers to Jennifer's wedding with no return address. I have to ask you, if you discovered you had family members who had been kept secret your entire life, how would you feel? Would you understand the need for secrecy, or would you feel betrayed by decades of silence? Because Linda's story shows us how complicated family loyalty can become when it spans generations. The diary entries from the 1990s and 2000s revealed just how deep Linda's connection to David's family had become. She hadn't just been sending money from a distance, she had been living a double life that required elaborate planning and careful deception. Every Tuesday for 20 years, Linda told Rebecca she was volunteering at the food bank. Instead, she was driving to Salem, where David's family lived, spending the day as the aunt she could never publicly claim to be. She taught Sarah to cook traditional Chinese dishes, helped Michael with his math homework, and became Jennifer's confidant during her teenage years. David's children knew her as Aunt Linda, their father's relative who preferred to keep family relationships private. They never questioned why she couldn't attend large family gatherings or why their father seemed nervous whenever they asked too many questions about her background. The most heartbreaking entries came from 2010, when David was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's at age 55. Linda wrote, "David is forgetting things, important things, dangerous things. Yesterday he forgot Patricia's name. Today he couldn't remember how to get home from the grocery store. I'm the only one who knows about the savings account he kept for emergencies, the insurance policies he bought but never told Patricia about. I have to help them, but I can't do it openly without revealing everything." Linda began managing David's care from the shadows. She researched specialists, arranged for the best medical treatment, and somehow convinced the insurance company to cover experimental therapies by claiming to be his secretary. When David's condition worsened, she hired private nurses and told Patricia the bills were being covered by a medical research grant. David died in 2015, taking with him the secret of Linda's true identity. But Linda continued caring for his family. She helped Sarah through her divorce, contributed to Michael's business when it was failing, and paid for Jennifer's graduate school. The entries showed the toll this double life had taken on Linda. She wrote, "Some nights I lie awake wondering if I'm being selfish, keeping this family secret when they could be part of Rebecca's life too. But how do you explain 40 years of deception? How do you tell your daughter that you've been living a lie to protect a family she doesn't even know exists? I want to take a moment here to thank all of you who follow these stories and share your own family experiences in the comments. Your openness about the complexities of family relationships helps others feel less alone when they discover their own family secrets. Linda's story resonates with so many people because we all understand the weight of protecting others through our silence. The diary entries from Linda's final years revealed a crisis that forced her hand in ways she'd never expected. In 2020, Sarah was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia and needed a bone marrow transplant. The National Marrow Donor Program couldn't find a match among registered donors. Linda's diary entry from March 15, 2020, was written in shaking handwriting. "Sarah is dying. The doctors say she has maybe 6 months without a transplant. I know in my heart that Rebecca could be a match. We share the same bloodline, the same genetic markers that could save Sarah's life. But how do I explain that my daughter has a cousin she's never met? How do I reveal 40 years of secrets when someone's life depends on it?" Linda made the most difficult decision of her life. Rather than reveal the family connection, she convinced her doctor to test her as a potential donor, using false information about her relationship to Sarah. At 78 years old, Linda was far from an ideal donor candidate, but she was a genetic match. The diary documented the grueling process of bone marrow extraction and the complications that followed. Linda's age made recovery difficult, and the procedure triggered a series of health problems that would ultimately lead to her death 4 years later. But Sarah survived. The transplant was successful, and by 2021, she was in complete remission. Linda watched from a distance as Sarah returned to her normal life, got remarried, and eventually had a healthy baby daughter in 2023. The final diary entries were filled with both pride and regret. Linda had saved Sarah's life, but the secret had nearly killed her in the process. Her health never fully recovered from the donation, and she spent her last years knowing that her sacrifice had to remain hidden forever. In her final entry, dated just 3 weeks before her death, Linda wrote, "I am leaving instructions for Rebecca to find this diary and to find David's family. I can't take this secret with me to the grave anymore. These people loved me, and I loved them, and love shouldn't have to hide in the shadows forever. Rebecca deserves to know she has family who will embrace her, and David's children deserve to know their Aunt Linda was Rebecca's mother, the woman who loved them like her own children for 40 years. Rebecca found more than just the diary in that hidden compartment." Linda had left detailed instructions, addresses, phone numbers, and sealed letters for each member of David's family. There was also a key to a safe deposit box that contained documents Rebecca had never seen, a will that divided Linda's estate equally between Rebecca and David's children, bank records showing decades of financial support, and photographs of family gatherings Rebecca had never known existed. The hardest part was making the first phone call. Rebecca chose Sarah, partly because the diary had mentioned her most frequently, and partly because something in Linda's writing suggested Sarah would understand the complexity of family secrets. "Hello," Rebecca said when Sarah answered, her voice shaking. "This is going to sound impossible, but I think you knew my mother. Her name was Linda Chen, and I found a diary that says you're my cousin." The silence on the other end of the line lasted so long Rebecca thought the call had been disconnected. Then Sarah began crying. "Aunt Linda was your mother?" Sarah whispered. "All these years, she was your mother?" The reunion took place at Linda's house on Hawthorne Boulevard, where Rebecca had grown up never knowing she had family just 2 hours away. Sarah arrived with Michael and Jennifer, carrying photo albums and memory boxes that documented 4 decades of love Linda had never been able to share with Rebecca. They spread everything out on Linda's dining room table, Rebecca's baby pictures next to photos of Sarah's piano recitals, Linda's carefully saved letters alongside Mother's Day cards from children Rebecca had never known existed. The evidence of Linda's double life was overwhelming and heartbreaking and beautiful all at once. "She attended my wedding," Jennifer said, tears streaming down her face as she showed Rebecca a photo from the church parking lot. "I thought she was just being shy, staying in the back. I never knew she couldn't sit with the family because she was protecting a secret." Michael had brought something that made Rebecca understand the depth of Linda's sacrifice: medical records showing that Linda had been Sarah's bone marrow donor. The donor registry listed her as anonymous family member, Michael explained. "We never knew who saved Sarah's life. We never got to thank her properly." The most powerful moment came when Sarah opened the last sealed letter Linda had left. It was addressed to all of them, a final explanation that brought 40 years of secrecy into the light. "My dear children, because that's what you all are to me, I know this discovery must be overwhelming and perhaps painful. I chose secrecy because I wanted to protect everyone I loved. But love shouldn't require hiding, and family shouldn't require shame. Rebecca, you have siblings who have been waiting their whole lives to know they have a sister. Sarah, Michael, Jennifer, you have a sister who has the same stubborn spirit and generous heart that made your father such a special man. I'm trusting all of you to build the family I was too afraid to create while I was alive." Today, Rebecca splits her time between Portland and Salem. Linda's house has become a gathering place for holiday celebrations that include everyone: David's children, their spouses, grandchildren Linda never got to meet openly. Sarah's daughter calls Rebecca Aunt Rebecca and has Linda's eyes and stubborn chin. They've established a scholarship fund in Linda's memory for children from single-parent families, and every year on the anniversary of David's death, they gather at his grave to tell him about the family Linda built in secret and love finally brought into the light. Rebecca told me that cleaning out that writing desk was the hardest and most rewarding thing she'd ever done. "I lost my mother," she said, "but I found a family I never knew existed. And I learned that sometimes the greatest love requires the greatest sacrifice." What would you have done in Linda's situation? Would you have revealed the secret earlier, or do you understand her reasons for protecting everyone through silence? And if you were Rebecca, how would you feel about discovering you had siblings who had been kept secret your entire life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. This story shows us that family is never as simple as we think it is, and that love often requires choices that seem impossible from the outside. If this story moved you, please subscribe for more discoveries that reveal the hidden complexities of family relationships. Your support helps me continue sharing these profound human stories that remind us we're all carrying secrets, protecting people we love, and hoping our choices will make sense to future generations. I'm Eleanor, and I spend my days uncovering the handwritten secrets people leave behind. Linda's diary entry reminds us that sometimes the most important family stories are the ones written in margins, hidden in secret compartments, and revealed only when we're brave enough to look beyond the surface of the lives we think we understand. Until next time, remember that every family has undiscovered chapters waiting to be found, and sometimes those chapters contain the most beautiful love stories of all.